What is up, everybody? Sean Sheehan back here with another edition of the Sheehan Show for Sherdog.com. And today, the card I'm going to be previewing this weekend is Bellator 276. And it's a bit of a change for me this time for Bellator. The last one, Bellator 275, was in my beautiful home country of Ireland. And I knew all the fighters pretty well and looked into their opponents. It was a nice, easy one. And this is a little bit different. There's a lot of... a lot of fighters on this card. There's a good few fights in it, but not the most well-known fighters throughout this at the very top of the division. There are some very good fighters, and we will get into them, and some nice fights as well, which I like. But this isn't one with, a title fight or multiple title fights or anything like that. There are one, maybe two title eliminators, and it's not the worst card in the world, not the best card in the world, but we will get into it as we go. I think it's important for Bellator as well that these cards, they actually they perform, if you want to put it that way, because it's easier for Bellator to go to Ireland, right? You put a few Irish people on the card, you put Mousasi on the top of the card, you have Liam McCourt versus Sinead Kavanagh, and you have the Irish crowd, and it's going to be amazing. We all know that. You put MVP on a card over in London, it's not going to be as good as Dublin. I think the English crowd haven't taken to Bellator the way Ireland has, I think, and there's multiple reasons for that. I was actually discussing with someone at Bellator, and I think it's a lot got to do with England is more kind of distorted in terms of their areas in the country, whereas if you're in Manchester, you might like Liverpool. If you're in Liverpool, you might like London, and it's a lot to do with the Premier League and stuff like that. In Ireland, we don't so much have that. We have obviously the rivalries in our local sports, GA and things like that, but someone from down my side of the country in Limerick, they're an MMA fan, and they see Sinead Kavanagh, they'd support her. They see Liam McCourt, or they see James Gallagher from up in Tyrone, or they see Peter Queally from Waterford. If they like the person, they will support them, and they will go that way. And it's great for those cards, and it's big over here. But outside of that, you need kind of big names, you need big title fights, and the Bellator kind of have done a good job of doing that. Those tin pole events that Scott Coker spoke about putting on, they kind of still are doing them, and they're making some very good cards. The fight coming up with the featherweight and light heavyweight title fights on it, I believe. We'll obviously get to that in a couple of weeks' time. And as I mentioned, the London card as well is really, really good. UFC have a great London card coming up. But these in-between cards, Bellator, I think, they need to do a better job of these. I think a little bit of a better job anyway. I'm not saying I expect the sun, moon and stars from Bellator on these, but I like this one. I like this fight at the top between Adam Borics and Mads Burnell, which we will get to in a second. But Bellator, I feel like, right, sometimes they have cards and they have it on the same night as the UFC, and it's not a great card, where they could have it the night before if they wanted to, or they have it they have their big cards and then they put them on a weird time, or they I don't know. I feel it sometimes with Bellator, and I like Bellator. I like a lot of what they're doing. I like the people there, especially their PR and everything is very, very good. It feels like, and it's not always easy as well because of the televisions and timings and everything like that. But I feel like some of the big decisions, either they're making them wrong or they're forced to be made wrong by scheduling, things like that. And it's holding them back a little bit, because I feel like Bellator, especially with what they've done over here, and especially with the way they've built up some of their fighters that they've got, namely like the likes of Mousasi, namely Pitbull, AJ McKee and others as well, they could be taking advantage of them a little bit more and making it a little bit bigger. I think they could, like Cage Warriors over here in this part of the world, and I'm not saying it does it all over the world, and it's different for Bellator, but they've done a great job of making it easy for the fans to watch, making the product what the fans know they're going to get. They know they're going to get some of the best prospects coming through. They know they're going to get good matchmaking. They know the prospects that they want to see coming through are going to come through, and it's going to be on a Saturday night before the UFC, or it's going to be on at a good time, and it's easier for them, absolutely, because they can kind of dictate themselves. I'm sure the UFC, being on Fight Pass, would have a little bit of a say on it, but all in all, they can do that, whereas Bellator can. But I would love Bellator to maybe fight a little bit more, or not even Bellator, maybe it's Viacom, maybe it's Showtime, wherever it is, to make the cards a little bit more consumable, make it a little bit easier to get and all of that, and make it just a little bit cleaner. And this is kind of first world problems I'm talking about here, because Bellator before, we used to be able to even watch it here, it used to be on tape delay, there used to be a whole raft of problems, and I understand it takes a while for these problems to kind of sort themselves out, and they've done an awful lot of it, so absolutely patting the back to Bellator for a lot of those things. And hopefully the other things that I mentioned, which are just kind of timings, maybe card layouts a little bit, and maybe making special cards at special times. And when it's a card like this, I'd love to see him going back to Friday. I'd love to see him on a Thursday. And, those are the days. You avoid UFC, avoid the, WWE or AEW, or avoid the weekends, and make it special and make people have a reason to stay in the Friday night and watch Bellator. But I digress. Let's get into the card and talk about it. I will try to talk, talking about all these Bellator cards and looking through all their fighters, looking through ways they put their cards together. I will every so often do a little bit of what I just did there, and the state of Bellator maybe, and the way they're going. Another thing I want to do as well, I want to highlight some of the very, very good up and coming prospects that Bellator have, and there's a couple on this card which I want to take a look at, and one especially. Now before I do that, starting off the card, there's a lightweight and a bantamweight fight. The lightweight fight, Dan Busch 4-1 against Josh Augustine 5-2. Then Trevor Ward 6-5 against 10-5 John Howard. And also a welterweight bout, Roman Faraldo, who looked very, very good in his last time out. He's fighting Kelvin Rayford. Faraldo is he's fighting out of American Top Team, and he's had his last 3 fights in Bellator. The last of which was last November. He won, if people remember, that big flying knee knockout, and he's definitely one to watch here as well. And what Bellator do very, very well is get guys like him. Another couple of guys I'm going to mention, Romero Cotton and Cody Law as well, especially, is the one I want to single out here especially. Almost every single card, they have a very good undefeated or near undefeated prospect on the card, so you can see them, so they're out there, so they're getting reps, so they're getting more fights in, so they're getting more experience. And honestly, I think Bellator do that better than anywhere else. They really, really do that in a very, very good way. There's no other. Obviously the UFC is the top of the game right now, and there's some very good ones as well, like obviously Cage Warriors, and I'm sure CFFC and others do it in America, and the people covering that scene will be able to tell you more about that than I would. But Bellator do a great job of showcasing these very, very good up and coming fighters on the undercards of these fights, and get them the the experience in front of crowds as well. I've talked to a lot of Irish fighters here, and they've talked about their first fight in the Tree Arena, their first fight in front of a big crowd, how different it is to fighting in a local GA hall here, or a bingo hall over in America, or It's very, very different. Those big lights, those big crowds, even if the crowds aren't totally in, even if there's only 1,000 or 2,000 people in there's a big difference between that and the wide open spaces as well of the arena than a small theatre, or a small, a local sports hall, or whatever it might be. And that is well needed for these sort of lads. I'll get to Cody Law in a second. He's fighting Johnny Soto. But Romero Cotton, he's also a very, very good prospect coming through. He's fighting out of AKA. His last fight was in Bellator. It was 2020 now. It's a good while since he's been in there. But, he's 4 of his 5 fights, he's finished inside the distance. All of his fights have been in Bellator, so it's great to see him coming back there. And he's going to be fighting Freddy Sandoval, who is 5-6 in his career. So look, it's a fight that he's him back in after a while out. Sandoval hasn't fought since 2009 here. I'm looking on Sherdog. He beat Drew Fickett back in the day. So that's a very, very interesting one. He's been out of the cage for a long time, so it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. But Cody Law, I went back and watched a few of his fights today and a few of his highlights. Like, this guy can do it all. Obviously his wrestling background, he gets you against the cage and takes you down, or takes you down in the middle of the cage. He's devastating. His ground and pound is unbelievable. His elbows on the ground. I think it was the Colton Ham fight where he took him down, and he was just devastating on top. Watching another one of his fights then, on the feet, he just looks so good. He looked sharp on the feet, was landing lots of big shots. And he looks like one of those guys as well that's just confident in all areas. You see some guys and they're very good wrestlers or they're very good strikers, and maybe, the good wrestlers, and maybe they're not that confident with their striking. The good strikers, maybe they're not that confident with their wrestling. But he looks to a guy like me who looks really, really confident in all areas, and he looks to me as a guy who can go all the way. He really does. He looks like a guy who the quicker he rises, I think the better he will get. Now, Bellator don't rise guys too quickly unless your name is Aaron Pico. But I'm looking forward to seeing him fight at the weekend. He's fighting Johnny Soto, who is 4-2. The next guy up. He's had a couple of fights in Bellator, went 1 and 2, beat Weber Almeida in his first fight, which is a very, very good win for him there. And fought a few times around the local scene before that. One loss in CFFC, and he's opening fight back in 2019, I think it was. So look, he'll be a test for Cody Law, but you'd have to expect Cody to come through that one again with flying colours. One of the other prospects on the card is Diana Avsaragova, who we all know because got a lot of acclaim, I suppose, when she signed for Bellator not too long ago. She's now 2-0 in Bellator, 4-0 overall. Close decision the last time out, last summer she fought, so she's been a while out of the cage now. She fought Gabriella Gulfin back then, and she's fighting Ashley Deen this time out. She fought Jasmine Jandavikius, who's fought in the UFC since that fight back in March of last year. So she's been a while out of the cage as well, almost a year to the day. In fact, it is a year to the day. I think it's the 12th of March this fight is, isn't it? Yeah. So exactly 1 year out of the cage. She has some experience in her young career so far. She's fought Julia Villa. Okay, she lost that fight, and she lost to Jandavikius as well, but it was a decision. She went there with her. So some experience, but obviously not the best record in the world. A test though, without a shadow of a doubt, after a tough test last time out as well for her. So I'm looking forward to seeing how she reacts to that one. As we go up to the card in, I assume this will be towards the main card, if not the top of the prelims. You've Derek Anderson against Goti Yamauchi. Anderson has been around Bellator for a long, long time now. This will be his 22nd fight. 12 finishes inside the distance out of his 17 wins. Lost to Michael Venom Page last time out back in the summer of last year. Feels like everyone fought in the summer of last year as well. But, I remember previewing that fight and talking about how Derek Anderson is a good fighter, but not in the level of MVP, and I kind of stand by that one. He has some very good wins. He's beat Syed Awad, he's beaten Patricki, he's obviously been in there with Marcin Held as well, and the former champion Bryn Primus, beaten Patricki twice actually. He's beaten Brandon Gertz, so he's had some very, very good wins. He's a good fighter, and he can fight, all the way around. And I think it's a good matchup here now for Yamauchi, who's been doing well over the last while. He's 32nd fight. Obviously he lost to Dan Murray, who's looked very, very good in Bellator around this time last year. He bounced back with a win over Christopher Gonzalez, but he's beaten Syed Awad too, beaten Daniel Weichel, beaten Darren Cruikshank. He had the loss to Michael Chandler back in 2018 after wins over Adam Piccolotti and others, and we've seen how good Adam Piccolotti looked a couple of weeks ago. Looked absolutely fantastic, so that win looks better and better every time. But Yamauchi, we know what he's going to do here. He's 20 submissions in his record. He's going to be looking to take the fight to the ground. He's going to be looking to get the finish here. But it's been tough over his last few fights in terms of getting rear naked or in terms of getting submissions. Okay, he obviously lost a split decision to Murray and won by a TKO against Gonzalez, and before that he had two in a row after going to a split decision as well with Weichel. Look, he'll be looking for that big submission. I'm sure Anderson will be looking to keep it on the feet. But Yamauchi is good on the feet as well. He can hit hard and he throws with reckless abandon because he's happy enough to go to the ground. So I actually think that'll be a good fight. It could be a standout fight on the card, and we'll see. We'll kind of see where it goes, I suppose. But that's definitely one in the welterweight division. Weight. It's hard to know what's going to happen in that welterweight division. at the moment. Is Amasov going to be able to fight? Obviously, he's over in the Ukraine at the moment fighting, a real fight. And MVP doesn't know what's going to be happening next. We have Paul Daly fighting Koreshkov. Paul Daly says he's going to retire, but I would fancy Koreshkov to win that fight anyway. If Koreshkov does win that fight, where's he going? Could he be next in line, or could the winner of this maybe fight him? Very, very interesting to see where that goes next. So a big fight for both of these guys here. And I think Yamauchi, especially with a win, will be looking to progress himself right up that division. Next time we have Alex Polizzi versus Jose Augustus Barros. Polizzi's 9-1 in his career. 7 of them have finished inside the distance. He had a very, very good win last time out against Grant Neal by split decision. He won before that by armbar after losing to Julius Anglickas, who fights in this card and who fought for the title last time out. He's a win over Rafael Carvalho as well, so some very, very good names on his record. Barros is he's had a few fights in the UFC now. We all remember him, I suppose, losing to Anthony Johnson after a great start last time out. Beat Jonathan Wilson in his Bellator debut. So this is it's an interesting fight. He's won 5 of his 7 fights by KO, finished all of his fights. And look, at light heavyweight, you're probably going to see the same again here. I would say Polizzi, a good fighter. Look, it's a well-made fight, and it's hard in that division as well, because Nimkov seems to be taking out everyone, and the winner of this could be next. You'd never know. You'd never know, or we'll be climbing the rankings anyway. So we'll see how that one goes here. And then we're getting into the big fights, and I like the top 4 fights here. Well, 3 of them anyway. JJ Wilson, one of the top prospects in Bellator, fighting out in New Zealand. Unfortunately, his last fight fell out, if I'm not mistaken, but he devastated Pedro Carvalho in his last fight back in 2021. Looked really good against Tywin Clarkson as well. Although that one was a closer fight, but he's had some really good finishes. He's fought in Bellator since his opening fight. He had one fight over in CCW in the middle of it there, but he has just looked so good. 7 of his 8 fights have finished inside the distance, split by 3 KOs and 4 submissions, so he can do it all. And he's one of these guys as well, you see him and he's confident and he's cocky and he's athletic and he's fast and he's strong and he can really, really do it all. I honestly think he might be, now that AJ McKee is no longer a prospect, I think JJ Wilson might be the top prospect in all of Bellator. So it's very, very interesting to see how he does here. He's gone in against Gahit Rabaadanov. Watched a bit of him. He's a finisher as well. He's got 6 KOs and 5 submissions in his 16 fights. Fought a lot in Eagle FC, which have a card coming up this week as well. Came to Bellator last summer, as everyone seems to have done, and beat Daniel Carey. But he's a win over like Steven Seiler as well, who we've known, who's been around for a long time, and he's made his debut all the way back in 2013. So this guy is a very, very seasoned fighter, I suppose. He beat like Rabzabov as an amateur as well. He finished him with an armbar, beat Ludovic Klein as well in the amateur. So this guy is a very, very good fighter, and it's a very, very interesting test for JJ Wilson. People are maybe expecting bigger or better tests in terms of names for Wilson, but I think this will be a tough one as well, and we'll see how he gets on with it in the 4th fight from the top. Johnny Eblen then against John Salter at middleweight. Obviously, Eblen is 10-0. Salter just fought for the title not too long, or Eblen even. I always mess up that name. Salter obviously losing out to Gegard Mousasi last August was a tough one after winning 3 in a row. He beat Chidi Njokwani, Costello Van Steenis along the way, and as Mousasi has kind of been doing recently, he's been making it look easy at times. But I think this is a very, very interesting matchup in terms of how it's going to look on the ground. 10 submission wins for John Salter out of 18 fights. And for Eblen, he's 5 KO wins, but a lot of them I would garner have been with ground and pound, watching a few of his fights. Look, he's one of those guys that will come across the cage, push you against the fence and take you down. Fighting out of American Top Team too, his hands are going to be good. he's a well-rounded fighter, but I think he'll be trying to get it to the... Well, having said that, right, the last time I was talking Neiman Gracie again. Who was Neiman Gracie fighting? He was fighting a wrestler, I can't remember, but who was it? God almighty, I have the worst memory of all time, but I was like, oh, this is definitely gone to the ground, and then it didn't. This is another one I think it's definitely gone to the ground, but probably won't now. we'll see, but I hope it does, because I think the scrambles, I think the jiu-jitsu will be very, very good in this. It's tough in that division for Bellator, because look, the middleweight division all over the world, Bellator, UFC, doesn't matter, is not great. It's a very, very poor division in terms of the standard at the moment, I would say. Now, there's some very good people like Adesanya, like Mousasi, like Robert Whittaker and stuff like that, but it's not that deep. And I think Bellator will be... Look, Bellator won't be praying for anything, but they'll be hoping, I think Eblen wins here and gets a shot at Mousasi, and they can put another undefeated guy against Mousasi. You know, Salter's already had that go at him, and it's going to be tough. But yeah, Eblen is one of those push out, drag out type of fighters, and I think against Salter's like that as well. To be honest, Salter's a tough guy, but I'm looking forward to seeing how that one goes. And I think that will be. I think it's one of those fights that'll be interesting wherever it goes. I don't think I would say the same for Phil Davis versus Julius Anglickas. Look, Anglickas, if anyone listened to the last preview I did before his fight with Vadim Nimkov at Bellator 268, I talked about how good he was. You know, he's a very well-rounded fighter. He can do it all. He almost knocked out Nimkov. You know, he hit him with a big shot. His performances against, you know, Gregory Millard and Alex Polizzi, who I mentioned earlier on as well, very, very good. And he can, you know, he's a lot of submissions, but he can take the fight long as well and win by decision. He's just a very well-rounded fighter, tough. I think the issue he showed against Nimkov a little bit was maybe his fight IQ a little bit, maybe athleticism a little bit as well. Nimkov is an unbelievable athlete. I think Phil Davis will try to partake in that as well, and I think after watching that fight he'll try to be using his wrestling here. Like Phil Davis, you know, he's 37 years of age now, but nevertheless he's still doing what he's always kind of done. Won 4 of his last 5, only losing to Nimkov, and his lost before that was Nimkov as well, and his lost before that was Bader, so he's only really losing to champions. You know, he's beaten Yoel Romero, Machida, Albrechtsen, McGeary, Vassell. He's, you know, Mo Lawal. Since he's gone to Bellator, he's beaten basically the who's who apart from the champions. You know, lost twice to Bader, lost twice to Nimkov, and those are his only losses in Bellator, I believe, so far. So, you know, it's going to take a good fighter to beat him. Is Anglickas a good fighter? Yes. Do I see him winning this? I don't know. Look, I think for Anglickas, it depends what he's taken from that last fight. I think if he took some positives from it, went back and watched the way he performed, I think he can beat Phil Davis. I think he has the ability to beat Phil Davis. I think he's good all around, and you know, his hand, I think he's a better striker than Phil Davis all around. Now, Phil Davis can control very well. He's very good defensively, very good at controlling a fight, whether it's on the feet or on the ground. And that would be my biggest issue, I think, for Anglickas here. If he loses that control to Davis, it will only get worse for him in terms of the loss of control. Now, I don't think he'll get finished. Look, this is a unanimous decision to Phil Davis written all over it. I think that's kind of what it always is, or maybe a split decision, you never know with Davis. But I don't think this will be the most exciting fight in the world anyway. I don't think the same could be said for the main event though. The featherweight contender fight between Mads Burnell and Adam Borics. You know, anyone who's watched Mads Burnell over the last few years knows how good of a fighter he is. I remember, you know, Paul Hughes was coming up here in the featherweight division in Cage Warriors, and he's calling out Mads Burnell at, you know, 5 or 6 fights into his career, and I was like, no, that's not a wise idea at this stage of your career. Mads Burnell in the UFC was a very good fighter. He lost to, what was it, Arnold Allen he lost to, and got released by the UFC, you know, after he lost to Michel Pereira and Michel Pereira and had beat Mike Santiago in the middle, and he got released, and I thought that was ridiculous, because he went to Cage Warriors and he submitted Lucas Rakowski, who's very good. He submitted Ahmad Villa, he submitted Dean Truman, he beat Steve Amiable, who's a gritty fighter on the local scene around here. And look, he made it look easy in the Cage Warrior scene, which few people do, the way he and Deen matches. But he gave him his best and brightest, and he just walked through him. And you could see, you know, I remember talking to someone about him on the kind of that scene. And you see sometimes fighters who are just out of place, you know? Do you get me? Like sometimes you see guys coming through and they're better than everyone and then they go up, but there's one guy who kind of comes down and is way too good and then rises back up, and that's kind of what he's done here. He hasn't got there yet because the guys he's fighting in Cage Warriors aren't a massive step above some of the guys he was fighting. The guys who's fighting in Bellator are not a massive step above the likes of Truman and Amiable and Rakowski. But Saul Rogers, obviously a very good fighter. He rear naked choked him, and Emmanuel Sanchez last time out. Close fight, but a good win there. Look, we all know Mads Burnell, good on the feet, throws big shots, but on the ground, 9 submission wins out of his 16 wins in his career to date, and he's so dangerous there. Adam Borics, similarly, he's when you look at Barros, he's one of these guys, right? He's like he's a safe fighter until he's a finisher. A little bit like Yoel Romero now. Not the same, not like he won't just wait and then pluck out of the air with a flying knee or something like that, but he will pluck a flying knee out of the air the hot time. He's a good few flying knee KO wins, as Aaron Pico and who else Nikolov knows about here as well. That to me is exactly what you need to know about Adam Borics. He's a good jab, good on the feet, good at range, he's a good long fighter. If it goes to decision, he beats most people at that range. But I think he's one issue at that range is if someone can get inside that range and someone can kind of make him pay for not maybe throwing enough or landing enough. And, I'm sure Burnell will be looking to take him down and land some ground and pound. That is a dangerous game to play. Like if you land one of those big shots and you knock someone out, all well and good. Or if you land 2 or 3 of those big shots each round, you hurt the guy and you win the round, all well and good. But what if you can't land that big shot and someone kicks your leg 5 or 6 times, or someone gets one takedown against you and lands 45 seconds of good ground and pound? That's a dangerous game to play. And that's the matchup here for me. I think Barros will be looking to keep it on the outside, land some big shots. Burnell will be looking to get inside, land some big shots, take him down and maybe get to submission. And that's it. That's the bottom top of it for me here. And it's a very intriguing fight. A very, very reminds me a little bit of Dos Anjos versus Moicano last weekend. Now, it didn't turn out that way, but I think the matchup, the way Moicano would be known for jabbing normally, which he didn't do much of, and Dos Anjos coming inside with the big shot, trying to take him down. Obviously not wanting to get submitted at the same time, but you get me, that sort of fight. I do think Mads Burnell will be happy on the feet and will be confident on the feet. I do think Borics won't be happy on the ground, but will be confident on the ground as well. And it's not a case if he gets taken down, he'll immediately get submitted, although it's very, very dangerous, and I wouldn't advise it in any way, shape or form. But, it's a very even fight, a very well-made fight, and I'm glad Bellator put it on. And look, the winner of this, I think, should be fighting for the title next. Barros has won 3 in a row now after losing to Darian Caldwell, and he would a pile in a row before that, being obviously 17-1. That's his only loss in his career to date. And Burnell, if you beat Sanchez, Rogers in a row, and after winning against Darko Banovic in your opening fight in Bellator after a massive run in Cage Warriors, I think you're right there or thereabouts. And a win over Barros means something, a win over Burnell means something, and this fight absolutely means something. So I'm looking forward to seeing this one happening on Saturday night. All right, everyone, that's it from me, Sean Sheehan here for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.